Hey there folks, welcome to the channel. I'm glad you can make it. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have a little bit of fun. Bit of an experiment, so to speak, because honestly, I don't know what's going to happen. I've got my concerns. We'll talk about those concerns here in a second. But first, let me show you what we just finished making. Through the process of smoking our pork shoulder, and I want to say we smoked it for 16, 17 hours using hickory, pecan, and a little applewood, primarily because that was a blend that I already had right there, so I just used that blend. I was able to capture some of the fat. Now I've strained it, I've filtered it, I got rid of any of the solids, any of the water, so this is just 100% rendered pork fat from our seasoned pork shoulder, which is why it's the color that it is. And I did this for the exclusive purpose of wanting to see if we can make a barbecue pork shoulder soap. So if you're not familiar with soap making requires three ingredients. It requires an oil or a fat, and it can be any oil or any fat that you want to use. Some sort of a liquid. Water most commonly is used. In today's soap making video, we're not going to use water, we're going to use beer. But you can use, buttermilk and wine and things like that. And of course, lye, some sort of a caustic soda. And when you combine all three of those ingredients, you get soap. It's a great way to use up any extra oil that you may have laying around that you're thinking about throwing out. If you have fry oil from fried chicken or French fries that you plan on throwing out, turn it into soap. All you got to do is add lye with a little water. If you happen to cook hamburger meat and you strain out the fat first, take that fat, turn it into soap. Anyway, today's soap recipe, though, is going to be a little tricky, and I've got my concerns. Primarily, the fat that we're going to be using here. So we seasoned ours. It's a little bit spicy. You got chili powders, you got cayenne pepper. When I give this a little taste, let me just taste this right here. Tastes like pulled pork, actually. It's smoky, but it's spicy as well. And so I'm wondering whether that spicy element is going to translate into the soap, which could be problematic depending on how you use the soap. Our pork shoulder was also seasoned with a little salt, and so I have no doubt that there's probably a little sodium chloride inside this oil. Salt tends to make the bar of soap a little bit harder, which actually isn't a bad thing. It means the bar of soap will last a little bit longer, but it could also cause the soap batter to trace a little bit faster. So we're just going to have to watch that. If you're not familiar with the soap lingo, when a soap batter goes to trace, it simply means that the oil and the lye have emulsified together and it's become cohesive. And at that point, it starts to thicken up and it starts to resemble like a pudding. That's called trace. You'll see that here in just a minute. Another concern that I have, a little small concern, is the oil itself. And while you can no doubtably make a bar of soap with rendered pork fat or lard, they've been doing it for centuries, what you'll end up with is a bar that doesn't lather very well, that has moderate cleaning ability. And so what soap makers will generally do is add a combination of other oils or fats to really pull the characteristics out of that soap. So let's say you want the soap to be super sudsy, super creamy. If you want it to be conditioning, or if you want to have exceptional cleaning ability, you will add different oils in order to achieve that. Coconut oil, super popular choice for soap, but also shea butter, mango butter, cocoa butter, castor oil, sunflower oil. Honestly, some of these recipes can get completely wild. Today, I don't want this to be a novelty soap. I want it to be actually functional. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding some coconut oil to the mix, and I'll put the exact quantities in the description box below. Adding coconut oil is going to increase the lather ability of this soap, and it's also going to increase its cleaning properties. So I think that'll be great. The other thing that I want this barbecue pulled pork soap to have that nice smoky barbecue aroma. And I believe if we don't add any type of aroma to this, it's just going to kind of neutralize during the process of saponification. So we're going to be adding very concentrated liquid smoke. This particular brand comes from the sausage maker, and of all the liquid smoke that I've ever used, I find this to be incredibly concentrated. I think it's going to work. Hopefully it's going to work great for our recipe. The concern that I have with liquid smoke is that it's acidic. The process of saponification is alkaline because we're dealing with sodium hydroxide or a lye solution. I do not want the aroma to cancel out the soap making process. And so I'm honestly not sure what's going to happen when we add the smoke. So we may add it in stages, or we may add it at the very end. Like I said, we're going to be experiencing this for the first time together. Finally, we're going to be adding our liquid. Like I said earlier, we're going to be adding a beer. You don't have to add beer. You can add water to be fine. But I thought it'd be fun to add a little bit of beer, and that way we kind of get the entire barbecue package. Problem with the beer, I do not want carbonation whatsoever. We want to make it completely flat. Ideally, I should have opened this up yesterday, let it sit out overnight, and then just flatten out completely. And I don't want it to be alcoholic. I want to lose the alcohol content. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, set it on the stove, and bring it to a little simmer until we can kind of make it flat and lose the alcohol. Matter of fact, let's do that right now. While that's cooling down, let's talk about our lye solution. We're going to be using drain cleaner. That's it, good old-fashioned granular drain cleaner. And what I'm looking for is the active ingredient sodium hydroxide. Right here on the back, it says 100% sodium hydroxide, absolutely perfect. What I don't want is a lot of weird additives. Sometimes drain cleaners, might add things like aluminum flakes or aluminum chips or anything like that to help cut through the grease when you're unclogging a drain. But for soap making, you don't want that stuff. You just want 100% or as close to 100% as you can get, and this is going to be perfect. At the end of the soap making process, your lye or sodium hydroxide is going to completely emulsify with your fat, leaving you neither this or this. Actually, it's going to turn into something chemically different, and that's what we know as soap. There are a few things that you can do through the soap making process that leaves you with a bar of soap that's a little more conditioning, a little more moisturizing. When you use the bar of soap, already it's going to be beer, smoke, and barbecue pulled pork. We don't want it to dry our hands out or anything like that. And one of those things that you can do to increase the conditioning and moisturizing elements of your soap is called super fatting. Super fatting is when you add a little more oil, whether it's rendered pork fat or coconut oil, than the amount of lye can saponify. So what you're going to end up with is a beautiful bar of soap that has unsaponified oils. And that's going to give your bar a completely different feel. And so for today's recipe, the way that I've calculated this out, we're going to be super fatting at a rate of 10%. That just means we're adding 10% more oil than this can convert into soap, and that should leave us with an absolutely beautiful bar. Cleans well, moisturizes, conditions, lathers well. Hopefully, I have no idea what's going to happen. Okay, the last thing we want to talk about are additives. Let's look at it down here.
This is our sodium hydroxide. I've already measured it out. We're going to set that to the side. And when it comes to soap making, you can almost add anything you want. I mean, the sky's the limit. So right here we have a little bentonite clay and some activated charcoal. I wanted to get some charcoal and some earth into this soap. Both of these additives are great in soap making because they act as detoxifiers. The bentonite clay removes impurities and excess toxins from the skin. And then, of course, you've got the activated charcoal. Is not only a powerful cleaner, but also a detoxifier, removing impurities, unclogging pores. Both of these ingredients also act as mild exfoliants, which is just great for the skin. So, super excited about having both of those ingredients in there. We need to get them into a liquid form, and so I'm just going to add a little neutral oil to both of those and give them a mix. We now need to add our liquid smoke. Here's where it gets tricky. Now, I would normally divide this liquid smoke between both of these and see what would happen, or maybe I would just add it to the batter itself, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to add it to the bentonite clay because the liquid smoke is water-based. That bentonite clay will immediately start to clump up as it tries to absorb that water. With oil, it doesn't do that. So we are going to add the full amount of liquid smoke only to the activated charcoal, give it a little mix, and set it to the side. So right here, we're okay. When we add it to our batter, that's when it's going to get a little tricky, so we'll see what happens in a minute. I did cool down our beer. Notice it's got a little bit of ice there, and I'm not worried about that because as soon as we add our sodium hydroxide, we're going to get an exothermic reaction. A significant amount of heat is going to be generated through this process. And all I'm looking to do here is dissolve the sodium hydroxide into the beer. So I just want this to be a complete liquid. Having the beer partially frozen, when you do that, will significantly reduce the amount of time that it takes to cool down the process. But even with the beer partially frozen, notice that my temperature is still at 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that's pretty hot. If I were to add the oils to this solution right now, we would more than likely accelerate the rate that that soap is made, and I don't want to do that. So I need it to cool down to something a little closer to room temperature, which is where we're at now. Under normal circumstances, I would pull out a stick blender at this point, but like I said, there's a lot of unknowns in this recipe, and so I am not going to use the stick blender at this moment. I may in a moment, depending on how this solution behaves. So let's add our lye water to the oil. And I'm just going to use the back end of a spatula to keep it from generating too many bubbles as we gently pour this in. Remember, everything at this point is room temperature, not a problem. Once we get 100% of that lye solution into our oils, and the oils is a mixture of coconut oil and the seasoned rendered pork fat from the pork shoulder that we cooked, we're just going to give it a very gentle stir. What I'm looking for here is how quickly this mixture starts to thicken up. When you use an immersion stick blender, you sort of accelerate that process, and I don't want to do it too fast. At this point, I'm not hating what I'm looking at. We're still very liquidy. This would be an extra light trace, which means that we're not too thick too fast, and that's the way that I want it because I still want to be able to work with that batter without it being like a pudding. All right, we've split the batter up into 3 measuring cups. And I'm going to take 2 of those measuring cups and divide the bentonite clay. So we're going to have 2 cups with bentonite clay, 1 cup without it. And then we're going to pour all that into a soap mold here in a second. So when I give it a mix, I'm still noticing that it's still relatively thin. It's not accelerating at the rate that I thought it might, which is a good thing. Sometimes when you add certain ingredients like aromas or micas, it accelerates the process, and you got to be able to move quick. And so right now I've got everything ready to go in the event that were to happen, but it's not happening. So I'm going to pull out the stick blender to move this along. I want it a little bit thicker when we pour it into our molds. It's also going to help incorporate the ingredients a little bit better. Notice the color lightens up quite a bit when you start to hit it with that immersion blender. All right. Going in for the last one. I am noticing it thicken up just perfectly, and this is actually going very smoothly. So far, so good. We're going to pour it into a mold. Now, I could just literally dump all this into a mold. It wouldn't be a problem. I do have a separator right in the middle because I want to create, 3 distinct portions in this soap. And so I'm just going to divide what we have currently into those 3 columns. And I think that that's going to give us an interesting look when we're done. Notice how it's thickened up quite a bit like a pudding. This is a heavy trace. And we're done. Now we're finished. So all we got to do is pull out the mold. Everything should stay nice and tidy right in the middle. Remove the back end and the front end. And now we need to add the activated charcoal along with the aroma. I'm doing this last because I wasn't sure how the acid in the aroma, in the smoke, was going to interact with the soap. So we're just going to literally put it on top and then just do a quick swirl to incorporate it, but it's mainly going to be just on the top. And I think that this is going to give the soap a very interesting, almost kind of like fiery, bonfire, barbecue, pit kind of look that's being incorporated into that deep orange. So we're only going to be mixing it right here on the very top. I'm not trying to do anything special. This is the amount of soap that was left over. Notice that at this point, it's had an opportunity to sit. It's actually quite thick. We're just going to put that on the top. And what we can do here is we can form it. We can give it like a live fire element, these peaks and valleys. At least that's the idea. It doesn't always work out that way. So you envision it one way, and then you hope that the execution at least gets you somewhere close. Finishing it up. There's our peaks. Spray down with a little 98% alcohol. And we're done. All right, so the soap's going to need to hang out there for about 24 hours. This is going to heat up through the night. It's going to firm that bar of soap up, and it'll get it to a place where we can actually cut it. So we're going to cover it, bring it to a cool, dark place, and 24 hours later, this is what our mold looks like. It's ready to cut. It's not ready to use. It's definitely ready to cut. Check out the differences between the 3 rows we had. 2 bentonite clay, 1 normal. Unmolding the soap a little soon could damage the soap if it's not firm enough, but it looks like we're good. 24 hours is usually enough. You can go a little bit longer, but if you go too long, your soap bar becomes a little hard to cut, and you could bust the guitar string on your cutter or whatever. Anyway, let's see how it looks. Step 1 of the soap making process is officially finished. This is what our bars of soap look like. We've got our 3 distinct layers here, which honestly doesn't make that big of a difference. It's more artistic than anything else. I mean, you don't have to do that. You can just throw everything together and mix it around if you want. It did not look like the aroma, the acidic smoke, interfered with the process, at least so far. So what we need to do now is we need to let these cure for about 30 days. That's going to help draw out some excess moisture from the soap, harden it up a little bit. It's also going to finish the saponification process. Right now they're very alkaline, but by the time we're finished, that pH is going to come down a little bit, and then it'll be ready to use. 30 days later, our soap is officially done. Very happy with the way that it came out. All right, let's go.
What do you think about that? Pretty wild looking bar of soap. Definitely looks like a wildfire going on. It has that outdoorsy, smoky, I wouldn't say it exactly smells like hickory smoke, but it definitely has a smoky, like a campfire type aroma. That's kind of interesting. Okay, now we need to find out if this even cleans. Got a station set up right here in front of me. Let's get our hands dirty.
What better way to test out the pulled pork soap than with pulled pork? So I've got a little bin here with pulled pork waste. We're just going to get our hands into it. It's greasy, it's grimy, it's grungy. Get our hands all coated down, front and back, up and down. And we're going to see how this soap performs. Now, I do want to add that on the smell, I do not get a pulled pork smell from the soap. I'm just getting a very light, smoky aroma. So I'm not really picking up the fact that it was made with seasoned pork shoulder rendered fat. All right, let's get into this. Liking that. All right, a little bit of a creamy thing going on there. Okay, cutting through the grease pretty fast. No issues with the cleanability on this end right here. Let's see how it lathers up. Coming through pretty creamy, actually. All right. The smoky aroma is definitely coming through stronger on the wash. Let's set that to the side and just finish up. Okay. Interesting. Very, very creamy lather. Almost like a shaving cream type of creamy. Let's go ahead and rinse off and see how the soap did. Cut through the grease, no problem. Loving the way that it cleaned. And the hands, I gotta tell you, hands feel incredibly soft, super moisturized, which is one of those benefits of super fatting.
It's kind of interesting because we were doing a lot of work in the dragon fruit orchard today, and that tends to dry your hands out a little bit. And not anymore. They feel great. I was hoping for more of a sudsy lather, if I had to be completely honest. And what we ended up with was a creamy lather, and perhaps maybe increasing the coconut oil ratio and decreasing the pork fat ratio would have given us that sudsy lather. But at the end of the day, it really didn't matter all too much because the soap did a great job cleaning. As far as the odor that it leaves behind, I wouldn't say it's very strong at all. I mean, it smells stronger on the soap than it does on the hand. The hands actually just smell like, you've been messing with a bonfire a little bit, maybe cooking on a barbecue pit, but just very, very faint. Overall, pretty happy with the bar of soap. Cleans, does what it's supposed to do, smells nice. One of my concerns was the spices and whether they would translate. And although the cayenne pepper, the chili powder, the paprikas, all that, gave the soap bar its color, I'm not feeling like it's a spicy bar of soap. But now that I'm saying that, maybe that wouldn't be that bad of a thing. You know, if you had a certain medical condition that required additional blood flow to a particular area of the body, using a spicy bar soap might increase that blood flow. Anyway, that's interesting. I like that there's activated charcoal. I like that there's bentonite clay. It gave it a kind of a cool look. It serves as a detoxifier. So yeah, pretty happy with the way this soap turned out. Let me know if you have any questions about this process. You can leave them in the comment section. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you are new to this channel and you like this type of content, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. We've got a very big month ahead of us. October 1st, we premiere Celebrate Sausage, Season 6, and we have a month full of daily uploads. I don't want you to miss a single episode. Thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.